and we don't acknowledge that there are other possibilities. So I love that you used the word impossible a while ago, because simply changing the word impossible to what is possible, asking that question, changes the focus, changes the brain, changes the biochemistry, changes everything about any individual circumstance.
Hey, you leader, entrepreneur, business owner, solopreneur, whatever you call yourself, we know you're a visionary business builder, wealth seeker looking to combine a passion for doing good with leading consciously. It's time to shift from a traditional focus of pure wealth accumulation to one that integrates well-being and fulfillment. This is the Conscious Edge podcast, and I'm Alecia St. Germain, entrepreneur and coach. Along with my friend and wellness advocate, Jonathan Duggar, we're diving into what it means to embody radical self-acceptance while still evolving to lead with compassion and kindness. We're sharing our own experiences and expertise as we unpack imposter syndrome, perfectionism, procrastination, and all the other things that lead to burnout and keep you from experiencing pure joy, business growth, and maximum impact. This is a safe and supportive space to explore what it means to be a human creating wealth and building a business. You're here for a purpose, and it's time to shine your light. So here we go. Okay, so today Jonathan came to me and he said that he wanted to talk about scarcity and abundance. And it's a very popular topic. People have formed entire coaching programs around it. There are many books written about it. There are lots of people who practice it, or interestingly, practice abundance, but it's actually from scarcity. So we could dig into that a little bit today. But it's interesting because before we started recording, Jonathan and I were chatting, and this moment came to my mind when I first decided that I was going to start my coaching practice. And there was a coach that I was following, and she was running a big event all the way out in California. My son was 7 months old, I think. My daughter was like maybe 3. And she invited me to come to her event. And I thought, well, I can't really, I'm nursing my son. I said, well, I'm still nursing my son. I'm not sure that that'll work. And she's like, well, bring your son. My son's going to be there. And the moment that I opened up to the possibility that maybe I could bring my kids, it was like the flights were affordable. I had points. You met me out there in California to help watch the kids with my husband. And so like everything came, and you and I went to this event. So everything just fell into place so easily. The moment that I decided I wanted to be there, and how was I going to make that happen? And so we were talking about how so often people will want something and say, well, that's not possible. I can't do it because. And so if you actually set those things aside and actually think about how can you make those things happen, the way just becomes so much easier. So we're going to dig into that a little bit today.
Awesome. Yeah. And I love that you have a story to set it up.
I love storytelling. And I'm also very linear thinking, which is kind of different, that I'm very logical in thinking.
Yeah.
I love to tell stories because I think that it's just how I relate to my world, really, is funny stories and humor and things like that. So, okay, so I'm going to pick your brain a little bit about scarcity versus abundance, because this is something you have done a lot of work around regarding mindfulness. And so let's set it up first. Scarcity is rampant in our culture. And so I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about where this is showing up in the world.
Well, we definitely have a scarcity issue in our culture for sure. And you can say it's a worldwide phenomenon for sure, but it's so inbred in our culture from a standpoint of we consider capitalism and our sort of corporate culture as a competitive environment. And often competition is set up as win-lose, and the idea that there's only so much to go around. So success looks like defeating somebody else. Well, that's very scarcity based. And it also is very self-limiting. from a company standpoint, from a cultural standpoint, and from an individual standpoint. So you can think of scarcity is looking at things we're running out of them. The resources are becoming depleted. Money's becoming depleted. Energy's becoming depleted. And there may be a truth element to that, but we take it to an extreme where we live in a place of fear, which drives scarcity, and don't acknowledge our brains over focus on that fear-based scarcity, and we don't acknowledge that there are other possibilities. So I love that you used the word impossible a while ago, because simply changing the word impossible to what is possible, asking that question, changes the focus, changes the brain, changes the biochemistry, changes everything about any individual circumstance. Because fear drives thinking like, this is impossible, or I should just give up before I even start because it's just impossible.
Yeah. So
I was telling you that.
Go ahead. No, well, you had brought up like this idea of limited resources and that whole concept. And I know so many entrepreneurs who come to me and they're just feeling empty, like they're depleted, energy is empty. And some of it's they're not filling the tank back up, but just running on fumes was the term you used. And so I thought that was really good because I could just really see so many people who are just running on empty and how scarcity based that is, because it's like, I don't have the time. And we talked about this in the overwhelm episode. I don't have the time to refill my tank, and how much of that is a scarcity piece of not having the abundance of time to even take care of yourself.
It's so interesting just how our bodies and brains work too, because just the mentality of scarcity, it leaves you in a place of feeling overwhelmed. It leaves you in a place of feeling depressed. It leaves you in a place of feeling anxious. So yes, we do get depleted. Yes, we do get into those places where we're trying to juggle so much, but a simple shift of perspective, it changes everything. It changes how we perceive the world around us, how we perceive ourselves, how we feel, like how energetically we feel. So when you can just sort of think of it, scarcity leaves you feeling overwhelmed and depressed and anxious. Abundance leaves you feeling excited and motivated and curious and hopeful. So just that tiny shift of turning something from, okay, asking the hardcore limiting approach of that's impossible, to asking the question, well, what is possible? Maybe you do need to put some context around it. What is possible under these conditions? What is possible at my current energy level, at my current busyness level? What is possible? But again, when your brain shifts from the place of shutdown to a place of curiosity, it changes everything. Absolutely everything.
Well, it's funny because as we're recording this, I am prepping to do a live workshop that I do with Immunity to Change, which I talked about Immunity to Change in a previous episode. So I'll make sure we link that as well. But here I am, I'm getting ready to do this live workshop. And you text me this morning, you're like, are you excited? And I said, I'm going to go with yes. Because in that moment, there were some logistical challenges around the way my miking was going to be set up and what resources I was going to have available. And I really we took a moment. I debriefed it with you. I'm like, okay. And also I could be really focused on how the workshop isn't going to maybe play out exactly as I want it to. And if I stay in that mode, it's going to be kind of a downer workshop. But that's not what I'm here for, right? Yeah. I'm here because I'm here to change lives. I'm here to help people create breakthroughs. And so it's really shifting to, okay, which parts of the presentation maybe are going to be left out because the resources aren't available to do it. Time resources and physical resources aren't available to do it. And yet it's still going to be awesome, right? It's just maybe not the way I would want it to be run, but it doesn't mean it's not going to be awesome and life-changing for people. And
Exactly.
of course, I'm going to work out some kind of comedy routine around the mic situation because I have this like riding in the plane. I'm a rock star. I'm totally on stage rocking it out. So there's going to be some jokes about that for sure happening. But that's what we were kind of talking about, that scarcity versus abundance, right?
Yep. Well, and I also want to make sure that, because I can already hear the internal dialogue of some people listening to this, that mostly what they've been exposed to and what they've been steeped in has been scarcity. You start undermining the possibilities of abundance often by taking some statement like, I'm going to make the best out of this, or I'm going to look at the positives in this. And they say, oh, that's one of those people that are it's just fake positivity. It's just pretending that things are better than they are. And that's absolutely the opposite of abundance. That's scarcity, actually, when somebody comes at that kind of place. So something that occurred to me when you were just talking about the scenario, that is kind of a way to shift thinking too, is, when you're put in a challenging situation like you may have today, first of all, you focus on what you have, which you made that statement. I'm here to do these things and it's going to be powerful. You focus on what you have, but you also look at opportunity and become curious about it. It's like, you know what? It's probably a good idea to come up with some different patterns and processes for doing this similar thing in different environments. So I have this 3-hour workshop. What if I only have an hour? Where are my priorities? Where are my highlights? So you just created a whole laboratory, real life laboratory of getting the opportunity to try something different. And it is going to be powerful and it is going to be awesome because that's why you're there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have no qualms about that. The biggest thing is working through. And so not fake positivity. When you said fake positivity, I was like, oh no, I have emotions around this. Like my heart hurts a little bit.
Absolutely.
And to go into a setting with that hurt heart and put that on other people, though, that's not productive either. So it's like, okay, I feel this emotion, and that doesn't mean it's going to be bad. Our brain is hardwired that any change or deviation from what's supposed to happen is going to be bad. And so this laboratory that you're opening up is like, oh, okay, there's other possibilities of things that are going to come out that I didn't even anticipate. So everything's just an experiment. And we do tons of experimenting at the Conscious Edge. So everything's trying things and experimenting and curiosity.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was a kid, I had a lot of attention challenges. As an adult, I still do too, but I see them as gifts most of the time now. But there were a lot of things that were challenging for me as a kid. And one of the things that my parents helped do to kind of counteract that was, I was involved in athletics, but I got involved in martial arts. And I had a martial arts instructor, an older man from mainland China, that was telling me about the word, I can't remember if it's the word disaster or the word crisis, but something similar in the Chinese language. It's actually made up of 2 characters. And the word translates in English, if you translate the characters themselves, a crisis is actually an opportunity for change, an opportunity to change. So it's like a completely different perspective of something that's disastrous, or, something that's would shut everything down. It's like, no, this is actually an opportunity to find a new path or a different path.
I'm just having a moment. I'm like, wait, we're literally using immunity to change coaching methodology, right? Like the resistance to change.
Absolutely.
And I'm being gifted this opportunity to just change the plan.
It is. That's what I meant earlier when I said this is where you could actually bring this into I think this was in our conversation before we started recording today. You could bring this into the dialogue of your actual workshop. So no, I think
I
it's
love real life. Real
awesome.
life always gifts me the opportunity. It's like, what am I going to talk about? Okay, here you go. Here's a situation to talk about. And that's just how life is, right? It's a gift. All right. So let's shift now. We've got the scarcity piece. I want to shift to abundance now. And we've opened up the
Absolutely.
idea of possibilities, but there's one thing that I see happening in the context of abundance that I want to address right before we make the shift. And that is there's a style of practicing abundance that I think actually causes a lot of stress, and it's surrounding money. And so there are people who are subscribing or really wanting to believe in abundance. And so they spend money, spend resource, spend whatever, kind of almost, I don't want to say haphazardly, but it's like, oh, more is coming. So I'm just spending. And then when more doesn't come, it's like, crap, what do I do now? Because now it's getting really uncomfortable, but I believe more is coming. So can you comment on that? Because I see that all the time. And I've been one that has done things like that.
Well, this is a good callback to us talking about mindfulness, because it is really important to examine context when any behavior has something that could border on the extreme. And spending can be that way. And often what we're doing, instead of when we spend that way, we often are actually trying to cover up something else or distract ourselves from something else, instead of it truly being plugged into this mindset or this state of being of abundance. So abundance isn't blindly just, well, I'm going to walk out in front of traffic because I truly believe that the universe will provide. I'm thinking abundantly. No, you're not. You're taking an unnecessary risk that doesn't have anything to do with longevity and the gift you can bring to the planet, or, so the behavior of something like that, that's an extreme, is definitely out of alignment with the concept of abundance. So I think the way to kind of shift that is, when you are thinking about spending money on something, put it in the context of, what's the gift in this? Is this something I want to do for myself today? Let's say you're going to splurge and go to a spa for a day for some self-care. Well, the abundant perspective would be, where is the gift? If I reconfigure my well-being, if I focus on my physical and mental health, where's the gift? What does that bring? And when you think about it from creating a win-win, it's like, okay, I plan to walk away from this after a day of self-care, energized, invigorated. I've had time to process and think. I've had time to myself. So now, here abundantly, I can do these other things. But if you come up from the approach of, I'm going to do this because I have this money going to fall from the sky. I'm going to pretend, I'm going to put that intention out there. You hear that a lot. I'm going to put that intention out there. This money just going to manifest. I'm going to manifest it. Well, I do believe in the power of attention, but it's not a magic wand that you wave and it happens. It's about putting yourself in a place where you can ask the right questions and do the right things and adjust your thinking and your behavior to create those situations. Mm-hmm. So, okay, I'm giving myself the day to think and to process and to re-energize. How am I going to use that gift? How am I going to use that energy? How am I going to use that refocus, that reframing?
To create.
Put me in a place to talk to 20 new people tomorrow, to be able to drum up new business, or I'm going to go out and look at real estate in a completely different way now, or whatever it is.
And so what I'm hearing is the practice that I see done that I think is, I'm just going to call it out, toxic, is that I want this lifestyle. So I'm going to start living this lifestyle right now without any plan for how to back that up. And therefore, it's just going to present itself with no intention for how to back that up. And so it leads to that overspending. And it rocks people's self-esteem when the opportunities to create that money don't come, or they don't come in the way that they expect. So what I'm really hearing is when you're choosing to invest in something, you know, everybody uses like, you got to spend money to make money. Well, is that backed up with something? Or is that because I spent money, now I'm entitled to make money? That's not exactly what we're talking about. It's not an entitlement piece. It's really, I'm spending this money. And this is the shift that I've made, is I'm not spending money on my business or myself or whatever because I'm trying to cover up or plug a hole or there's something lacking, which is scarcity mindset. I'm spending money because it's a strategic investment in making sure, like hiring a copywriter to really capture my voice and what it is that I want to say, because that's her gift, or taking the time to stay in a really nice hotel and just enjoy and relish in my guilty pleasure, which is staying alone in hotels. I told my daughter, she's like, Mom, what's your guilty pleasure? I was like, I really love to stay in hotels by myself. And she goes, why is it guilty? I go, because I feel a little guilty because I should be with you guys and I should want you here with me. But also I really love my space, right? But there's a lot of creativity and rejuvenation and wonderful things that come from this space that I give myself. So that's that shift between why are you spending that money? And I just really wanted to address that because, and I'm just going to say it again, just because you spend the money and invest the money does not entitle you to make the return.
Exactly. But one of the core components of sort of practicing abundance or making that shift is training your mind, to become almost a reflex of what are the possibilities. And then as a possibility, what are the opportunities? So when you start asking questions, and this can be about money, this can be about behavior, this can be around choices you make on a regular basis, it's like, what are the possibilities in that? And then think of it in terms of how those possibilities create more possibilities. So a good example of a fancy hotel. So when you're in a fancy hotel, there is a likelihood that you are going to meet other people, maybe some high net worth individuals that are maybe looking for investment opportunities. You never know where conversations are going to lead in that direction. And one of my guilty pleasures is I like to fly in first class, especially international flights. I like the lay flat seats, and it is an indulgence sometimes, and often I can bargain shop it or use miles or a combination of miles. But there are times where I have splurged for first class, and I knew it was a splurge, but I also looked at the gift in that. I'm going to get 8 hours of sleep where I probably wouldn't sleep at all. I'm going to have the opportunity to meet some other people that are also have made some choices to be there, and it's just those kind of things where you train your mind to look for those possibilities. And then the other side of that is be willing to embrace the opportunity when it arises. I'm not the most social person on the planet in stranger-based environments. Tend to be a little introverted, but I do try and look at if somebody strikes up a conversation when I'm in that first class cabin about what I do for work, or I try and look at that as an opportunity to have a conversation and meet somebody new that maybe there's a win-win we can create in that situation. I don't always do it. Sometimes I pretend I'm listening to a podcast and just, put my head down.
Depends on what resources, right? But you're refilling right at that moment, right?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So one of the things that I think is a really good question to ask yourself from the scarcity mindset versus the abundant mindset is, am I making this choice to move me away from what I fear or towards my vision?
Very good. I love that.
And that's in every moment when you've got a big choice and you're feeling a little conflicted and maybe Sometimes it's hard to make a decision because you want to make the right decision. And there isn't one, by the way. It's whatever's right in that moment, or whatever the best of your knowledge is am I making that decision? What's going to move me towards what I really envision for myself versus what am I if I'm protecting myself from what I fear? So, if you are someone who has been practicing abundance mindset and it doesn't feel like it's coming together, I highly encourage you to look within at what unconscious thoughts, and you may not even know that they're there, but if you start to pay attention to what am I thinking, or why am I making this decision, or what is my expectation, you may start to find some thoughts that you did not know were there. And this is part of the work that we do at The Conscious Edge, is we really work through to find the root cause of self-sabotaging behaviors. So sometimes I'll see someone they're saying all the right things, but their actions are scarcity actions.
Yes.
And so
Absolutely.
It's getting underneath what is the unconscious thought, the unconscious scarcity thought that is causing the behaviors that don't align with what's coming out of someone's mouth.
Yes. And that's a good callback to mindfulness again, is, in the moment, examine from a non-judgment standpoint, where's this behavior coming from? Or where's this feeling coming from? Where's this word I just used coming from? What's the base of that? And then working on reframing that. Instead of I have to, I get to. That seems like a small thing, but it's a huge perspective shift. Impossible, what's possible? Just those small reframings, and it's often language based, but it sometimes is feeling based, where you feel panicky about having to do something, learning to take a breath and embrace the curiosity of it. Changes the way we feel, changes our biochemistry, changes our biological behavior. So those small things, those small steps make a huge difference.
All right. So scarcity feels panicky, and then abundance feels, if you could describe it, hopeful, curious,
motivated, energized.
Yeah. And I find it not attached. There's a lack of attachment that comes.
Explain that a little bit more.
So like if I'm in an abundant mindset, I am going to maybe try to do something in my business that maybe I want to tweak something or I want to test something. And instead of me being attached to what the result will be, I'm unattached.
Okay.
I'm like, well, let's just be curious. Let's see how this works. What are the numbers going to be? How is it going to affect things? And then I'll decide, am I going to do it again or am I not going to do it again? Or does it need to be refined?
Yep.
So I'm not attached. When I'm in an abundant mindset, I'm not attached to the outcome.
Absolutely. And that's where, when we started this conversation, I talked about sort of that win-lose mentality. There's also can be an all or none mentality as part of that. And when you approach everything as what are the possibilities, that goes away. That attachment. And I like that. I'm glad you brought that up, because that attachment goes away. And that is a really important piece of the shift. It's like, okay, if I am attached to this and I feel really strongly about it, where is that coming from and why?
What am I making that mean? Exactly. All right. So I think this is going to wrap our conversation up for today, but this is a real opportunity for you to look at where are the places in my life where I'm feeling scarcity? Where are the places in my life where I'm choosing a decision out of fear to move me away from something I fear, versus when am I unattached to the results? When am I open to possibilities? When am I being flexible and feeling hopeful? And there's a little bit of joy in there. I'm sure of it, because that's my thing.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think that's a good place for us to wrap up. And please, if you have something that opened up for you, or there's something that you would like us to discuss on the podcast, please make sure you email me and also Jonathan at hello@consciousedge.com. And make sure you subscribe so that you can get notifications of new episodes coming out weekly. and share this with someone that you love. So I am sending you so much love.
Be well, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Conscious Edge podcast. Make sure you subscribe and take a moment to be kind and share this episode with someone you care about. Leave a review to help us bring more compassionate leaders building businesses and creating wealth to the table. And for show notes, head over to consciousedge.com/podcast. This podcast and the linked materials are presented solely for general information, educational, and entertainment purposes and should not be taken as personal or medical advice or any kind of mental health treatment. Please consult a medical or mental health professional if you feel you need such services. Please be advised that all investing and entrepreneurial endeavors involve risk, and the use of the education and information on this podcast and linked materials is at the user's own risk.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.